Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of Gummin. So today we're going to be removing the orange peel in the roof and pillars on my little 2014 Corolla. So those who have been following this channel will know the transformation I've done in recent months on this Corolla. It's been quite a journey, it's been a bit of fun, and it's really transformed the look of this car. It really does look pretty cool if you ask me. Hey, I know it's just a Corolla, they're a pretty boring, average, everyday car, but for a Corolla, it looks pretty cool if you ask me. So we're starting off by going around and doing some readings on how many microns we've got around the car. Now this video here, I'm gonna have to say a big thanks to Ray, who is my local 3M rep. It was his idea. And without him, I wouldn't have even done it. I swear I would not have done it because this is ceramic clear and it's really hard to buff. But he's the 3M guy, so he's got all the fancy sandpapers that we need to sand it all down properly and get it to a position that's easy to polish, if that makes sense. So by the time we finish it off with 5000 grit, it's really not going to take that much time to do the polishing. And Ray also organized this detailing block set, which is pretty damn cool. So it comes from Malamotive, they're an Australian company, and they make the splines and also this detailing kit. So for those of you who don't know what a spline is, it's a tool that's used in restoration work to recreate the original shape of the panels. So I was actually doing a little bit of reading up on the Malamotive website, and supposedly when they sculpt the shape of a car, like the designers, they will use splines to make the design and the sculpture of the original cars. So it kind of makes sense that if you want to make it look the same as it did when it was new, you should use the same tools as the designer used. But all that aside, we're getting stuck straight into it, and what Ray decided to do here was a bit of an example for you guys to see the difference in the different sandpaper grits. So the one on the very left was 1500, the one in the middle was 3000, the next one was 5000, and then we also did a small section at the very end with 8000. Now, as Ray said, look, most of the time, 5,000 is more than enough. However, you can go that next step to 8,000. But what we ended up doing on this entire roof and these pillars, 5,000 was more than enough. Now, it turns out that they only have the 8,000 in the 76mm pads, so they don't have them in the 150mm pads for the big orbital sanders. So it would have also taken quite a bit longer to sand the entire roof down with 8000, and as I said, it's not really quite necessary. So what we're doing here is starting off with the 1000 grit. And I started off with the hard block, which was the acrylic one that you see on screen again here. And I did the guts, like the inside sections, with the hard acrylic block. But you do have to be pretty careful with those hard acrylic blocks because they're not very forgiving at all. They're going to go and cut through any edges quite fast, especially that we started off with 1000 grit. So to knock that orange peel out, we really needed to go with a coarse sandpaper. We went for 1000 grit. If you wanted to go dead flat and you wanted to completely remove any orange peel, any puddling type of effect, you could probably even go 800 grit. But personally, I would avoid doing that unless I put the 3 coats of clear coat on. So on this job, I just put the standard 2 coats of clear. But as I say, that's entirely up to the kind of finish that you're looking for. If you're looking for better than showroom finish, if you're looking for like the dead flat finish, well then that's probably what you're gonna want to do. This is a daily driver. I don't actually want it to look too good because then when I do get a chip or a scratch, it's gonna break my heart, if you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, man, it's just a Toyota Corolla. I don't need it to be dead flat finish. I just wanted to knock that heavy orange peel out. And as I said, I wouldn't have even done it if Ray didn't offer to help me, because this clear coat is really hard to polish. It's a ceramic clear. It's called Quartz Crystal Clear, and it's definitely unforgiving. One of the most unforgiving clears I've ever used. Another thing you should be doing is wiping the panels down clean in between each stage. So as I said at the start, I went 1000 grit first, and then wiped it down, and then went 1500 grit, but I started with the orbital sander. Now, once you've done your 1500 grit stage, give that a good wipe down and make sure you haven't missed any of those 1000 grit scratches. I don't find it too hard to see the difference between the sanding grit stages. So as you saw at the very start, it's pretty easy to see that it gets shinier between each stage. So make sure you haven't missed any of the previous stage grits. So what we did was 1000 on the block. We then went 1500 orbital, 3000 orbital, and then 5000 orbital. And as you can see here, it's basically half polished. Keep in mind that all of your polishes and compounds actually have a grit size as well. It's just in a slightly different form. It's in a paste or it's in a compound rather than being on a sandpaper. Polishes and compounds and all those waxes, they're really not that much high tech. They've been around for quite some time. And Neil from Exclusive FX, which is where we're actually doing this job here, he was saying that he used to have to like make his own compounds up. And I heard the stories, like I thought that was like from back in the 30s and 40s. But it's like he's not that much older than me, maybe like 10 years older than me. And he reckons that like his tradesman used to make him get corn flour and mix it with Brasso or something crazy like that. And he reckons that he made him sand down and buff up an entire car, do it all by hand. Like it's crazy stuff, man. Like that must have been in the 90s or 80s or something like that. So for your tradesmen to make you do stuff like that, that's pretty hilarious. And yeah, either way, all that aside, that's me using what was my favorite new tool at the time, and it went and died on me, the Milwaukee cordless polisher. I wasn't even able to finish the cut stage, let alone get onto the polishing stage on the roof, and that was two 5 amp hour batteries. What actually happened is they overheated, so they didn't actually die. There was still power in them, but they overheated, so I was a little bit let down by that buff. Don't get me wrong, I do love my Milwaukee cordless polisher. It's a great handy tool to have, but it does have its limitations, obviously. And the overheating was the biggest issue I was having on this day anyway. Like I didn't even feel like I did that much buffing with it. It was probably only 5 minutes and each battery was toasted. Yeah, not even 5 minutes maybe. But yeah, look, it was a bit of a warm day on the day that I was doing the buffing. But on the other hand, this flex tool, I was able to do the entire roof and it didn't have any overheating issues. So yeah, maybe that's a bit of a thumbs up for the flex. Now, I would like to quickly mention that I did actually originally give this tool a negative review because I couldn't get it to get rid of this hazing or marring, which I'm about to show you guys. I'll show you guys that in a minute, but what we're having a quick look at here is a bit of a before and after. So once you see the before and after, it's pretty obvious why I did decide to cut it back flat, because there was a bit of orange peel in there. So this is a bit of a look at that effect that I was telling you that I was getting out of the orbital polisher. So I was getting like this real hazed off look, and it was making it look all grey, as you see there right on screen now. And yeah, like it turned out that it wasn't the machine itself, it was more the polish that I was using. But what I ended up finding out was that the 3M ultra fine polish was the miracle cure that got rid of all the swirls from the rotary buff, and also of all of the marring that I was getting from pretty much all of the other fine polishes that I had, at least. So I was using a couple of different ones from Sonax, and none of them were fine enough. I haven't dug much deeper to find whether or not they do actually have one in the Sonax range that is an ultra fine polish. But I tell you what, that step 3, if you are ever to go and polish any ceramic clears, I do highly recommend using that 3M step 3 ultra fine polish. It was a bit of a lifesaver for me. So yeah, as you can see here, we've got some amazing results. At the start of the video, as you saw, we had that relatively heavy orange peel in the clear coat, and it's pretty much all gone. Like, look, to be honest, it's not 100% gone. If I look into it, you can sort of see that sort of semi-puddling look, if you know what I mean. But it's like above and beyond like the level of me being happy with it. Like I'm absolutely wrapped with it, and who wouldn't be? It looks incredible. But on the topic of that rotary buff with the batteries stalling on me, It's actually good that it did it in a funny way. It's got the circuitry in those batteries to stop it from overheating. Like if the circuitry wasn't there, if I was say using one of the ultra cheap, like one of the Azedo buffers, then I probably would have had like battery acid leaking all over my arm. It's basically done what it was meant to do, which is shutting itself off before it does go and explode on you. But yeah, look, that aside, I'm actually looking at getting one of the flex rotary buffers because I've obviously already got the fast charger and the batteries, so that's the expensive part. So I'm going to look at getting the flex rotary polisher as well. Why not? And I'll do like a bit of a comparison against the Milwaukee one. So once I was happy with the polishing stage, I then locked it in with a ceramic coating, and I'm going to give that a sort of monthly top up with one of those SiO2 sprays, which is yeah, like another thing that's worth looking into if you're just sort of dipping your toes into the detailing game as a bit of a top up. It was actually one of my friends, Brad Urbas from America, who got me onto the SiO2 sprays. Also, I can't remember if I mentioned before, but we did that micrometer test at the start before we did the polishing and then after we did the polishing. So at the start, it was hovering sort of around 200 microns. That was the black sections, and the original sections, like the red sections where I didn't paint, was around 100 microns. So basically I sprayed the same amount of material build in 2 coats of black and 2 coats of clear as Toyota did in their red, their clear, and their primer. So I did really heave it on. When you hear Gunny say, I just smashed it on, I literally do mean I smashed a lot of material on. And after we did the polishing, I only ended up taking, say, 10 microns off. So you're really not taking a great deal away from that final protection that you have. I've had some people say, oh no, you shouldn't be cutting your paint back flat. And look, that's more of a detailer's thing. To be honest, they're probably rightfully scared because if they cut through, they don't know how to repaint it. Whereas us painters, it's like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to take it in the booth and I'll have that roof resprayed in a couple of hours. Yes, I don't want it to be done, obviously. But if it does happen, it's not the end of the world for us painters.